Hey, this is Tom Calvin. Thanks for tuning in to Tomorrow's Legends.
In 2016, a new TV show hit the digital airwaves and needed a podcast dedicated to chronicling its adventures. An elite team has been assembled for this task. Unfortunately, the world's listeners have not heard of this Wonder Twin duo. And although they may not be known now, in the future they will be referred to as Tomorrow's Legends.
In the beginning, there was Flash and Harley Quinn. But they are no more. They have become someone else. They have become something else.
Hey, oh no. You're wearing the yellow suit. That's never a good sign.
The name is Eobard. That's the last time you mistaken me for that do-gooder Flash. I have changed the timeline so that I am in his place during this so-called crisis.
Oh boy. That's actually not good. There's way too much for you to take advantage of right now and turn things to your best interests.
That's right, circus girl. You're brighter than you look. Maybe you should think about joining me as I rewrite history.
With a pitch like that, it's no wonder you're alone, you maniac. I better get the rest of the team. Jeez, that's weird to be saying that. It's like I'm part of the Justice League or something, as if they'd ever listen to me. Then again, with all that's happening right now, maybe they will.
And now, here are your hosts, the fleet-footed Flash and his hammer-swinging partner, Harley Quinn.
Happy New Year, Legendaires! Welcome back to Tomorrow's Legends for Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 4 and 5. And welcome back to the show, because we are back! Season 5 is upon us, finally.
Yay!
Woohoo! We're
back.
I mean, yes, we did the Crisis Parts 1 to 3, but it still feels like it's been a very long time since we've been here.
It has, and this was technically one of these episodes, was our official first episode. So, you know, it feels like we weren't kicking off season 5 until this point. So,
yeah, and they actually considered this season 5 episode 1.
They sure did.
Episode, so, yeah.
They sure did.
Interesting. Well, I don't know about you. I'm just happy to be back. I just feel like Legends was kind of slipping away because, you know, I've been podcasting about Arrow and podcasting about The Mandalorian, and Legends just seemed like it's been on the back shelf for so long. It's just good to be back with you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's totally been kind of on the back shelf. It's been a long while since we've had the chance to record about it. I think we've both been off doing other things. I did some Legion podcasting in the off season, some
right.
Mr. Robot podcasting in the off season. So, you know, I didn't step away from the mic completely, but it's, you know, it's good to be back with our original show, if you will.
True. Well, it is. This is where we started, so it is our original show. Well, I'm guessing everybody's probably excited to hear what we think of how this crisis event wrapped up. You think we should get into it?
I think we should.
Now, if there's any hints that you guys got from our little intro there, we definitely are on opposite sides of the scales than our usual selves. We're not playing the hero versus the villain. It's kind of... I am playing Reverse Flash tonight. I am not too happy with how things went, and you have kind of turned the page and really kind of liked how it ended.
I did kind of like how it ended. So I don't know that I'm fully a hero. Maybe I can be the anti-heroine of the evening, and you can be our villain of the evening.
Yeah, I don't get to play the villain too often, so this might be fun. And don't worry, listeners, I'm not going to really rant and scream at you or scream at the episode and make you really want to turn it off or anything. I have some points that I want to, I guess you could say, nitpick. Maybe this will be one big long nitpick section. I don't know. There's just some major issues that I really had with what they did, where the writing and the directing went, and I want to get it off my chest. I want to see if Harley here has anything to counter it with and maybe throw a different flavor at it, and that always makes for a good conversation.
It does, yeah. I always feel like the conversation is better when we're on slightly opposite sides, because when we both either hate it or love it, it tends to be either ranty or gushy. So we get better conversation when we're on different sides of the table.
Right. And I do want to add, I only got to see episodes 4 and 5 once. I did not get a second attempt at looking at them yet to hopefully see if my feelings change, because I think what happened for me is, if you guys heard our earlier talk and you heard the massive crossover podcast, I was not happy with episode 2. Episode 1 was okay. Episode 3 I thought was fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and it left me on that mark. So I had all these expectations, and we had a month off and a month away from everything. And as it started getting close to coming back, I got really excited, and I was expecting and hoping for a fantastic finale. And I maybe put that mark a little too high, because these last 2 episodes didn't live up to what I was hoping for. And I think that could be part of the problem. So I am going to watch them again, and maybe I'll come back and change my mind, because we're going to record this on my sour feelings. I'll watch the episodes again, and maybe when we come back for our official kickoff to our new season, maybe I'll kind of put a little rebuttal. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. It seems like you might have some pretty strong feelings, so maybe we should just get into it. Do you want to give your rating first?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So part 4, I am only giving it a rating of 5, and that may be one of my lowest ratings I've ever given one of our shows. I don't know. But I'm calling it a 5 shadow demons in the writer's room, because these writers must have been disrupted, and I have no idea. I think they lost grip on everything, what they were doing in this episode. There's a lot going on there. And then for part 5, it brought it up a little bit. I'm giving it 6 seats at the Justice League table, because there was a few things that they did in this episode. Minus one, you guys all, I'm sure, know that I absolutely disagree with. But anyway, they had a few things that I really did enjoy. And there was some stuff. There's some good points in here I do want to highlight that I did enjoy. It just, there wasn't enough to counter the things I was complaining about. So there you go, 5 and a 6. How about you, Carly?
Such as a giant blue plush doll.
And that's all we need to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, I know you're going to hate this, but we are going to have to talk about that. Okay. Anyways, so my ratings, I gave part 4 an 8.5. It was better the second time around.
Okay, what would your rating be the first time then? Your feelings on the first time?
Well, I don't know. I didn't rewatch the first death, but I did still feel as if it was rushed and didn't make sense at that point in time. Okay. And so I felt like what they were able to do with this episode and how they spun the Spectre character for me, it worked better the second time around. I felt like the death was a lot more meaningful. Well,
that we're definitely going to talk about, because I got a few things there. All right.
And I gave part 5 9 Rebecca Silver book signings, despite the blue plush doll appearance.
Holy, you are way up there. We really are opposite ends of the spectrum.
We are very opposite ends of the spectrum. I mean, I got to watch it a second time. I did watch it a second time, and I don't know, I was still enjoying it. There were parts I literally laughed out loud, like, because I found it funny, not because I thought it was terrible. So
what happened to Harley Quinn? What did you do with her? Because the way, with how much disdain you had for things they did in the first 3 episodes, I expected you to come back with some like venom on your tongue and fire in your eyes. What happened?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the month off kind of chilled me out, and my expectations were so low that I enjoyed this. I don't know.
That's the trick. You went in with low expectations.
I did go in with low expectations. Yeah.
I went in with high expectations. That is probably the trick right there. Which I might be able to bring out. Like I said, I might be able to bring up my scores on a second viewing. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. Well, maybe let's get into it and see if anything I have to say will help, or if it's just gonna hurt more. So these points that I wrote out, more or less, are gonna follow the chronological order. So we're gonna discuss quite a bit of part 4 before we get to part 5, which is the Legends proper episode. But it's one big finale, so we're gonna talk about the whole thing.
All right.
And the first place I would like to start, logically, is the Dawn of Time. Mm-hmm. And this, I thought this was a neat opening. I liked that we got a little bit of the backstory. So we got a little bit about Marnovu, who he is, a little bit. And then he travels to the Dawn of Time, which I thought this was pretty cool. They showed the temporal zone, and he kind of acknowledges that he was in the temporal zone at the dawn of time, at least of our universe, before he accidentally breaches into the anti-universe or whatever he's calling it. So I thought that was kind of cool because I feel like that's a better tie-in of Legends into the overall like lore of the multiverse, if you will. So I liked that sort of brought that in, since the only time we usually see the temporal zone is on Legends, and they kind of just talk about it as this like magical place that nothing can change in because it's outside of time or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I like the idea because in the previous 3 episodes, we only heard the Monitor, I think once. I forget which character he was talking to, but he expressed that he once had a wife and child as well and lost them to the Anti-Monitor. And, and he actually pulled on a little bit of emotion and gave us a hint that he's not just some, cosmic being. He had a life before. He was a somebody before. And that's what I enjoyed about the way this opened, is that it pulled us back to that, to see him as just a scientist.
Yeah,
and
he didn't even have powers or anything.
No, and I thought it was a little bit funny when they worked in. He's like, "What is this ridiculous outfit you made for me?" And she's like, "Oh, that'll just help you survive the cosmic rays or whatever it is." And I thought, okay, sure, but your arms are exposed, your head is exposed, okay, or whatever. It was still a little bit funny, but I just liked it. It was neat to see that he was just a scientist. And for a moment, I thought it'd be cool if Barry or Cisco or somebody, or even Wells, would get to talk to him at this point in his lifetime, and they could talk science. I thought that would have been neat to see them be able to do that. But
yeah,
But what I thought was really cool is that he said that was 10,000 years ago when we saw a flashback to his time. So I mean that means his race, whatever it is, had some pretty advanced technology way ahead of us, way before Earth's time. Before human time almost. And so that was kind of cool, thinking like his species was really, really far advanced back then.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the whole idea that civilizations really do rise and fall, and that there was this whole entire civilization 10,000 years ago that was so advanced that they could travel through time, whereas that's something that we quote unquote like struggle with today. So it is kind of an interesting concept as well.
Yeah. And when he got back to the dawn of time, to right before when things were happening, I guess they were kind of going like that whole green light, whatever it was, waves flying around. I guess they were kind of going for like a cosmic soup, if that makes sense, quote unquote cosmic soup, because everything's mixed up before it actually explodes and creates the Big Bang and all that starts. I guess that's what they were going for. So the visual was kind of cool. And
Yeah. No, it was a cool visual, and it's the same type of visual we get with the temporal zone. So I liked that tie-in and that connection between those kind of two concepts.
Yeah, and that wasn't even our Legends episode. That was the Arrow episode.
I know, yeah. And that's what I think I liked about these 2 episodes, the quote Arrow and Legends episode. I felt like it was decently intertwined with the time that we got for both like Legends and Arrow characters, in my opinion. So I liked that. Yeah,
although one minor thing to point out here is that for the Arrow episode, they gave all of our Arrow actors credit, but none of them showed up in this part 4. There was no Dinah, there was no Renee. They didn't show up until the last episode, where they didn't get credit. They got credit in an Arrow, so it was kind of funny. It's like, I'm waiting for where's Dinah? Where is everybody? They never showed up.
Yeah. I think they play a little fast and loose with the episodes, which I like it better when they do that. I like it to be more of a seamless story than like trying to shoehorn in specific episodes, because I feel like that doesn't work as well.
Yeah, you had made note of that before. I think even in the crossover you had said that you don't want it to be, this is a Supergirl episode and everything feels Supergirl, and this is it should be a 5-part event. It should be a movie. Yes. And that's, I think, trying to watch all 5 episodes in a row to make it like a movie might make it feel a little bit different.
It might, yeah. I definitely need to go back and rewatch all of it, I think, and just see my opinion of the whole thing as it unfolds, for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next part, which is the vanishing point. So we get a little bit of time with our team stuck there, and I thought this was kind of an interesting concept. I actually liked the way that this opened. I liked that Ryan was narrating everything. We don't know that much about his character or he was introduced in this crossover. So I thought it was kind of cool that they gave him a little bit of a voice so that we could kind of hear him and maybe start to get used to his character and maybe start to get to know his character a little bit. And then I liked that what this did is it showed what each of the Paragons have kind of like been going through, and they've all been tested in the various ways to kind of test what they're the Paragon for. And they truly got trapped kind of in their own type of purgatory. I mean, Oliver was in the quote real purgatory, whereas like our team got trapped outside of space and time, but they're very much stuck there in a very similar way. So I thought that was interesting to see that they were, both coming from two different types of purgatories.
Yeah, well, with what you began with Ryan there, I agree with you there, because we're kind of questioning, who is this guy? Why is the Paragon of humanity? And to have him narrate what's happening, and they all look like they've been there for a while because he had grown a beard and everything. So for him to open with a little bit of narration kind of gives him that connection to humanity. He's at this point in time, humanity's gone. He's the last of it because he's not super powered, and he's kind of just talking about the state of things are at and how does this affect someone like him, and how does it affect the superheroes. The superheroes aren't able to handle some of the things they're having to deal with. So it was a good connection for him, and it allowed us, like you said, to get to understand him a little bit and get to know his character. It's kind of giving us a beginning for him. And I think I like the actor. I think I enjoy him. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him and where he goes with this character if he does become the Atom. I'm still hoping not. I don't want a simple shoe-in replacement for the Atom, so they really have to make sure he's something different. And yeah, I don't know. But right now, like I enjoy the actor. He's been okay so far, and I've got a point about him a little bit later that I didn't like, so we'll get to that. But
okay.
But I am with you. And in the beginning, it gave us a nice connection to him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the next biggest thing that happened in this episode, because I think we're still in part 4, maybe we're still in part 4 for a while. We're going to call this the real death of Oliver Queen, and then kind of like his Spectre story arc, I guess. Okay,
let me just interject. That's the title of this next segment, but I want to ask you said, quote unquote, the real death, because we saw him die once on episode 1.
Yeah.
And he dies again here in episode 4. Again, not making it all the way to the end. And yet we still have 2 more Arrow episodes coming. Why? They've killed him twice. Are they going to bring him back again? Only to kill him a third time? Or to send him off into the sunset? Or to what?
I don't know. I don't really know what the future of Arrow holds, but I have a very funny feeling it is going to be very Mia-centric, would be my guess, if I had to put money on it.
Yeah, that's a bet you're going to win, because they've already released details about episode 9 of Arrow. It is called Green Arrow and the Canaries, and it's just about Mia and Dinah and Laurel. They've released, people have posted on our Facebook page and on Arrow Squad and stuff. You'll see the pictures they've released already. So if episode 9 is called that, well, then that's obviously what they are dealing with. So what does that leave us for episode 10? Oliver obviously has to come back, because we know Felicity is coming back. Well, she can't come back unless she has a scene with him.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, we do get him, and I mean, we can maybe debate this a little bit more later when it kind of falls in line with how the episode is flowing. But I mean, he does have that whole monologue at the end where he's narrating, I assume something straight out of the comics, where he's talking about the infinitude and basically like the Big Bang and the multiverse kind of reforming, and we see the montage of all the different Earths. Yeah. And so that is him narrating it, which to me almost gives him more of like him being the Monitor at that point. And so like maybe like his powers as Spectre, and the fact that he was able to defeat the Anti-Monitor, he's replaced Marnovu as the Monitor proper, because this is now his universe, is the only thing I can kind of think of.
I'm with you there. That's what I agree with you on, is that he moved on and became the Monitor. That is why he is giving that whole spiel, because that's exactly what the Monitor said. And now it's Oliver saying it. So I believe that is where he's moved on to. What that does to the first Monitor, Marno View, I have no idea. I don't know if he gets to go back to have his life again.
I don't know, because I don't think he ever became the Monitor in this version of events. Yeah. You know what I mean? Is kind of the conclusion that I have to come to. So what actually happens to him, I don't know. Because the Anti-Monitor was still there and is still there, a version of Mar-Novu somewhere, in theory, has to always breach into the dawn of time of the Antiverse and create the Anti-Monitor in the first place. Otherwise, we would have had no one to battle in our next episode. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that whole monologue, I think, is in episode 5 when Oliver's saying that.
It is. So, it's all at the end. Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, because he defeats in that big battle. He defeats the Anti-Monitor and then becomes a Monitor himself. So does that mean there is, like, because he obviously knows he doesn't want to go to the dawn of time and breach into the anti-universe there. So maybe that won't happen now that things have changed.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess it depends on how consolidated the universes are. I think that's the overarching question after the end, but we can maybe debate that in a little bit.
Sure. Well, Finn, you got a couple more points here about Oliver.
I did have a couple points here. So, I mean, going back to like him dying twice, kind of. So the first death was like Oliver, the human version of Oliver, like as we've come to know him. And like, I mean, he died, he straight up died. And then they tried to bring him back, which meant his soul remained in purgatory. So to me, when he's in purgatory, he never comes back to like his human body. So to me, that means he existed in this like ethereal form, which is how he became Spectre, because he refers to himself as a ghost. Like he's Oliver Queen, but he's not Oliver Queen. He's sort of a ghost, a specter, that's how he introduces like what the Spectre is. And so what I liked about this is I think it's a nice final nod to all of his original introductions of I have become something else. Whereas, so he finally becomes that quote, something else. And to me, I felt like it gave his character more of a final purpose, because I hated the first death. It felt rushed, it felt cheap, and it felt like it was betraying his character. I hated it. I ranted about it for a while in our last episode. Yeah, I hated it. But I felt like as much as because I didn't know anything about Spectre, and so I was like, I don't even understand why they're making him a character. I don't really know anything about him. Like I said over and over, this is a deep cut. People aren't going to understand it. I don't understand it, that kind of thing. But the way that they introduced it here and how they showed it throughout this entire episode worked really well for me. And to me, I felt like he was finally able to fulfill his final mission, which was to save the multiverse. That's exactly what he did.
Okay.
I'll pause there. I have more to go, but let me pause.
Yeah. Where can I go with this one? I agree with you on on his first death. We already ranted a lot about that in our other episodes. I'm totally with you there. Now, what I don't agree with here, this is one of my points, and I've got a couple of notes here. Just Oliver becoming Spectre, becoming something else. I disagree with that, because I agree with the part as Arrow's always done this. He's always led with it. I have to become someone else. I have to become something else. That's been his catchphrase, his tagline to open every episode. And this fulfills that prophecy. Yes, he's became something else to save them. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. But for Oliver to become the Spectre, which most of the regular TV viewing audience probably doesn't know anything about.
Nope.
And I'm a big comic book guy. I don't even know much about Spectre. I know what he looks like. He wears a cool white and green costume. I don't really know a lot about him, and I don't, you have to really deep dive to really understand how powerful that character was. So that was a deep breach, like you said. So that already pulls you away from the episode. That already takes you out of a connection, which is what the problem is. Oliver dying while he's the Spectre doesn't allow us to relate to him. We can't relate to this loss, to this death, because it is not Oliver anymore. He's the Spectre. Well, we have not spent 8 seasons following the Spectre, so we now are no longer connected to him, and that took away from me feeling emotional for the second time he had to die. And what it does, because we know him as the Arrow. He is the Arrow. Now, I think let him play the Spectre part, sure, do a few things, but he should have been able to come back as Oliver Queen, come back as the Arrow, and die in the arms of his friends as Oliver Queen, as the Arrow. The Arrow should have gotten to save the universe, not Spectre, because this is the end of Arrow. You can't introduce something like that in a blink of an eye and expect us to connect to it and understand and be like, oh, wow, like he became the Spectre. Wow, oh, he's dying. Oh, what a loss. Well, no, because we don't know him.
No, but it's still at the end of the day, and this is what he says to Barry, like, he's still Oliver Queen. He's just, I guess technically, yeah, he's no longer the Arrow because he's had to become the Spectre, and he has these whatever Spectre powers are where he's able to spark the rebirth of the universe and all of that like crazy stuff. But at his core, he's still Oliver Queen. And my argument to that is that at the end of the day, yeah, Oliver Queen, the essence of Oliver Queen was still there as Spectre, and that is what died. And at the end, I mean, to me, like all of the Spectre power is completely gone out of him because that's what starts the rebirth of the universe, and what we're left with is our Oliver Queen. And to me, that's why the death was still impactful, because I wasn't looking at it as this is Spectre, this is a new character. I'm looking at it because he has the same face, he's the same guy, and he states over and over that he is Oliver Queen, that was Oliver Queen, and that was a much better death with a much more significant purpose than the original one when his quote Arrow died. That was dumb. This was impactful and it meant something.
Yeah, well, you have a couple good points there. I don't know. The whole Spectre thing, I think I would have taken to it better if the Spectre just took him with him and he helped the Spectre. You know, Spectre was Spectre, Oliver was Oliver as the Arrow, and they worked together to accomplish whatever needed to accomplish. I think I wanted him to sacrifice himself and save the universe as Arrow, not as becoming this other being with these cosmic powers, something we've never seen before, nobody understands or gets. That's not Oliver Queen. He's never had powers. Why give him powers in the very end?
Because loved him as... How many times did someone say a normal man can't take down the anti-monitor? A normal man, the Arrow, quote unquote, can't save the multiverse. It's impossible. He has no powers. It makes like no literal sense. How many times have you heard that argument over the whole last season of Arrow? How is it going to be Oliver Queen? It doesn't make any sense. He's not even a metahuman. This is so dumb. That's why they had to do that.
Yeah, you got a good point, but to me, it's just as dumb to give him all these superpowers when we've watched Arrow as 8 seasons long, no superpowers hardly on that show, and that's what we've all appreciated about the ground, the way that show is much more grounded. So
Which
it just
why
was
they had to do
too
this
much.
In Crisis.
Yeah. Well, let me bring in another point here, because something else I want to continue with, like what. And this could be drawing on or pulling on why I did not appreciate or enjoy this death, because, again, for the second time, and this pissed me off more than anything, was Diggle not getting to be there. Again, for his death. We saw how upset he was after the first time, and they go and do that to him again. To me, that is complete disrespect to those two characters' stories as brothers, as comrades, as best friends. Their story that we've watched grow over 8 seasons, that's complete slap in the face, disrespectful to not allow Diggle to be there with him in the end again after how upset he was the first time. That part really bothers me, and it really devalued this whole sequence for me, not allowing that to happen. And then they bring it back in episode 5 to show how upset Diggle is again, and he's crying, and it's wrong. It's wrong. You don't end the story that we've watched for 8 seasons of those two guys like that. I was really upset that they didn't allow them to finish the story together, especially because Diggle promised, I will be there with you to the end. As far as I can go, I'm going to be with you there. You're my brother. And he doesn't get any of that. That's wrong.
I mean, you could argue he went as far as he could go. I mean, he did, but
he didn't get to go anywhere. That's the point. He didn't get to go anywhere. He wasn't even part of the fight. He was nowhere. All we saw was him sitting on a couch with his wife at the end. Like he didn't get to become part of the fight at all.
Yeah,
he should have been there.
Because the only people fighting were the Paragons. He fought at the final battle, but
so anyway, it just upsets me. That's not the way to write that story or close that story on those two guys. After all they've been through from episode 1 of Arrow, after everything they've been through, let them end it together. So if somehow they can bring Oliver back for a third time and let him have a scene with Diggle to end out the Arrow show in the last 2 episodes, that hopefully will make up for it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what they do with that. I don't know.
Cool. All right, well, you've got a little more point here. I had to throw those in between, so what do you want to finish that with?
Well, I just liked the symbolism of having Oliver be the one that started the new version of the multiverse, just because he's the one who started all of this, like, quote, Arrowverse. I mean, it's called the Arrowverse for a reason. So, like, Arrow started the whole franchise, and it's really all kind of rested on his shoulders. So I just enjoyed that symbolism where, you know, he was able to restart the universe, which is just kind of the, you know, I'm giving birth to this new universe. So it was kind of a nice way to say, we're closing out Arrow, but it was a good nod to recognize that none of this would have been possible without Arrow in the first place. So, I liked that.
Well, that I can wholeheartedly agree on, because I've argued that over all the podcasts we've done, whatever ones I've guested on, whatever ones we've had crossovers with. I keep saying none of these shows would exist without Arrow. And for all the fans out there that keep bashing Arrow and don't even watch Arrow, I'm like, you guys wouldn't even have The Flash. You wouldn't even have Supergirl if it wasn't for Arrow. So give Arrow some respect. Mm-hmm. It bothers me to hear people bash it. I'm like, oh, well, guess what? None of your shows would be here without Arrow, and everything is owed to Arrow and a lot to Stephen Amell, because he really did a lot of behind the scenes, you know, string pulling to get a lot of these other things going. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. So and that's what I said in our crossover podcast, that I want Oliver Queen, I want Stephen Amell, I want Arrow to get the respect it deserves and the proper ending. So I hope they do something more in the last 2 Arrow episodes to really tip their hats, and we'll get to it. Just the way they did it in episode 5 at the end here, could have done a lot better. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. So I need more. I need a better tipping of the hat. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just have to see where they go with that. I don't know. With Arrow coming to an end, the way that it seemingly is, and the way that all of the Marvel Universe stuff came to an end, it really just reminded me of that line about Tony Stark. You know, he can finally rest. He's finally at peace, because, you know, as long as he's alive, he'll never stop. There's always another mission. He'll never keep going. So he can finally rest.
Yeah, I like that comparison to the Marvel Universe and the Tony Stark. Really, you could say Oliver Queen is the Tony Stark.
He is.
You know, they're both rich, both gadget based, and nothing super about them at all. And they were the ultimate heroes in the end. So it's a very good comparison. Yeah.
And Iron Man started that entire franchise as well.
Yes. Yep. That's a good comparison. Yeah. Totally agree.
All right. So the whole big chunk of this episode, I think I'm losing track of which episode is which at this point, was the Speed Force, if I recall. So I thought this was kind of an interesting concept of going into the Speed Force. As far as like anything Legends specific, the only thing they really did was kind of revisit Sarah Lance's death as the Black Canary, which I thought was really interesting, that was the moment that Barry had to kind of like revisit to wake her back up once she was lost in the Speed Force. So I don't really have much else on this. I don't know how much in detail you want to talk about like the whole going into the Speed Force concept in order to save everybody. But
well, scientifically, it makes sense because the Speed Force is also outside of time, outside of reality. So it kind of makes sense with everything they were going for in this storyline, that if you can get into the Speed Force, you can also survive and be saved from reality and time being collapsed and, you know, whatever. So I like the idea. It was a good idea. that scene with Laurel and Diggle with Sarah on the table. I mean, they made that look good. It almost looked like they pulled old footage.
It
and
almost did.
That's what I thought they did. And then Barry shows up. I'm like, well, how are they going to do? And then Laurel reacts to him, and I'm like, wait a sec, this is new. Okay, wow, really, really cool. And it was a neat scene to draw all the way, because I think that was season 2 when Sarah dies of Arrow, was it not?
Which would be before the Flash, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So still really cool, because they looked at him like, who are you? What's going on? Like, it was fun. They had a couple cool moments like that in the Speed Force, with just people revisiting different pasts and stuff. And that kind of leads to, I guess, I'll save it for my favorite scene, but everyone will probably want us to talk about the Flash visiting the Flash, because that was also a Speed Force thing.
That's true.
But I mean, we'll save that, because that is, there's a spoiler for it. That is my favorite scene coming up. So we'll talk about that. But he does also visit the last year's Crisis event when they were trying to stop Superman in the book, the Dark Superman.
All of the events, I believe. Well, no, he didn't.
He didn't. Not the Dominators and stuff.
Yeah, he did. He revisited the Dominators with the scene with Oliver and Supergirl was from the Dominators.
Okay. Yeah,
Crossover.
Right.
They didn't revisit Crisis on Earth X, I don't believe, but you're right. They did. It was all they did the Book of Destiny, and they did Dominators, and then they did Sarah's death, and Kate Kane. It was Ray and Oliver confronting one another, which was a scene I didn't even remember took place.
No, I think that's new. I think that was a new scene as well. I don't.
Oh, really?
We'll have to draw on the Arrow fans. I don't remember Oliver confronting Ray or anything like that. So because I think at that point in this episode, that was not Oliver in time. That was Oliver in, I don't know if he's in the Speed Force or if he's in.
Yeah, it was the Speed Force.
Ghost mode. Yeah, I think that was a new scene. I don't know why they were revisiting that. That was at the time. Was that when Ray was dating Felicity and they were? I think it may have been after they had just broken up, because he said that her emotions are clouding her judgment of you. Right. There you go. So interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Although it was kind of confusing too. I'm going to admit that now. Like, watching it the first time through, I have to watch. That's why I'm kind of stumbling right now to try to remember something, because that whole sequence was a little bit confusing as to what's going on and why they're both revisiting different eras, different parts of their past from within the Speed Force. That's where these two episodes struggled. They had so much to try to fit in. They were not being very clear, not explaining things very well, because they move on to the next scene right away.
Yeah, the way they were jumping was getting a little bit confusing. And I was trying to figure this out on my second watch of kind of like, what was the purpose, right, of each of these scenes. And I think it was almost intended for different people. Like, the first scene was obviously intended for Barry, so that Oliver could explain to Barry like what was happening. And then the scene with Sarah, I don't really feel like that was intended for necessarily anyone. It was just kind of waking her up. But then I feel like the scene with the Book of Destiny, where he kind of confronts Oliver, that's more for Barry so that he can get that answer. And then the last scene with Kate, where she's witnessing
Oliver and Ray.
Yeah, with Oliver and Ray. I feel like that was more for her to learn that it's okay to trust people, because I feel like that's an issue that her character has as well, that her and Oliver very much had in common, was trust issues.
Yeah. And
then there's one more we're forgetting. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah, it was a bit confusing. There's a little bit you can take from every one of them, but I think it was, I don't know if it was intended to be ambiguous, but it certainly was ambiguous.
Yeah, I think the one you're missing is Oliver and Supergirl back in the Justice League warehouse there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that one felt like Jean was teaching them a lesson, which doesn't make sense because they're supposed to be figments of his of the Speed Force. So I don't know.
See what I mean? Bit confusing.
Yeah, so that part was a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, overall it was. They didn't have enough time in these 2 episodes, and I don't know. It's just too much. I think actually your next point is going to open on the door for me to kind of go on my next little rant here. So,
well, why don't you just go ahead and start? So then, the next thing we come to is the first battle with the Anti-Monitor.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me see how you counter this, because maybe I should have said some of this in my opening monologue a little bit more, but this is where I found this entire 5-episode event. I think they reached too big. I think Crisis is too big of a story to do on a TV show. As much as I would love to have seen them do what they did in the comic books, I think it was a little too big for them to reach. And part of it, the way they filmed it, they changed the story from what the comics did, but the way they did this, it felt like we've been here, seen it, done it before. You know what I mean? Been there, done that. That's what I'm trying to say. Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they've done it a few times before. We've had mass armies of aliens, the Dominators.
Right.
We had mass armies of shadow demons. We've had demons from other dimensions. Pull from the movies. We had the Age of Ultron movie. Tons of robots flying around. It's just, we've seen this over and over and over again, whether it's movies or TV shows, massive battles, the first Marvel Avengers movies, tons of aliens coming through. It's just over and over again, this massive battle. So it felt tired. It felt boring. Been there, done that kind of feeling. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And that's what they reached so big with this Crisis event, and it ended up just falling into this trap of, tons of shadow demons. That's it. That's all we're fighting. And it no longer felt like a crisis. No longer felt like their Earths are colliding. No matter, like they opened with it really well when we saw Earth 2 get disintegrated. We saw Earth by Earth get disintegrated. And that's what I mean by they reached too big. They reached so far, so big, kicked it off really well, and then they're like, oh crap. We have no idea how to end this. We have no idea how to wrap this up. We've opened this massive can of worms. How do we end this story now? And they just couldn't. And that's part of what's is so disappointing in these last 2 episodes. It just collapsed to nothing but fighting shadow demons. And where I think they kind of made up for it a little bit in the last episode is when the Anti-Monitor does show up again and he grows to this one giant being, because that's what I was going to say here is instead of a massive army of limitless shadow demons coming through to fight, they should have made it one big bad guy. Like, imagine if they brought in Darkseid. For those of you that know who Darkseid is, one of Superman's greatest villains that the Justice League themselves has fought many times in some of the greatest cartoon episodes of the Justice League cartoon and some of the cartoon movies. Darkseid is an amazing villain. Or even Doomsday, which they did in the movies, which they did poorly in the movie. They should have brought Doomsday in. Something like that. Something that is one massive villain that it takes all of them to come together and fight, figure out how their powers can work together, use their strategies, use their abilities to take down this one big bad enemy. That to me would have been way more intriguing, way more heart-pounding, edge of seat. Holy cow, like Darkseid, there's one, because he's got those laser beams that he shoots from his eyes that can track anybody and anything faster than Superman, faster than the Flash. These laser beams they're like homing missiles. Imagine seeing that on the screen, live action. You've got this one big bad guy that all of our team can't handle, and it comes to them figuring out to take him down. So much more intriguing and interest in that than another army of limitless enemies. We've seen it so many times, and I was just like, yawn, boring.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with you on the limitless army. I do think that's a trope. It's a superhero trope, and it's definitely overused, especially in this universe. But I think where I'm going to differ with you on just in general is the status at that point, like, of the universe. So we had already gotten rid of the universe. Everything had already been erased. There was nothing else left for the Anti-Monitor to destroy. And they said this a couple times before, is that they were at the dawn of time and they were both fighting for whichever version of either the multiverse or the antiverse was going to actually come out and was actually going to be born, if you will. And so I kind of disagree. Like, I think at that point, I think the battle made sense in that it was exactly what it needed to be. Is it was, you know, the Spectre versus the Anti-Monitor, or for lack of a better way to put this, you know, Monitor versus Anti-Monitor, where they were each fighting for our known universe, or Anti-Monitor's fighting for his anti-universe, right? And so I think the shadow demons, like that's truly the battle is between the two of them, and in who's going to win that, because whoever wins that gets to basically birth their version of their universe, right? And so I think the shadow demons were exactly what they were meant to be. They were a distraction. They were just something to keep the Paragons busy. And then once Oliver sort of, or Spectre, however you want to look at that, got to a certain point in the battle, that's when, you know, the Anti-Monitor was weakening. So his shadow demons, his power, if you will, was diminishing and going away. And that was the point where the Paragons were then able to refocus and help Oliver to rebirth the universe, to fan that flame, so that they overpowered, using the Book of Destiny, overpowered the Anti-Monitor at the dawn of time, so that their universe was even reborn, period. Now, he can't be completely destroyed, but they were at least able to rebirth our universe, as opposed to the Anti-Monitor rebirthing the Antiverse.
Now, I like your argument there. I like that point about the Anti-Monitor versus Oliver / Spectre / Monitor, new Monitor. Like, I love that. That is such a good argument for that point, and I totally agree with you on there, that they're fighting to see whose universe is going to be the next one. Yeah. And that's cool. It's still shadow demons, boring. Like, every fight scene, what do we see? 3 scenes in this whole 5-episode arc, 3 big battles, and they're just fighting shadow demons. And it's the same old. It was dull. It was boring. And that's why I liked when Anti-Monitor grew big at the end, and they're all throwing everything they got him. That's what it should have been the whole time. We should have seen him be like that and stomp a couple of, like it would have been great if the Anti-Monitor came in and punched the poop out of Oliver, and that's why he died in the first episode. It would have been great if Supergirl came flying at him and he knocked her out of the sky, and then he steps on her, takes her out of the fight. And you know, when we see our heroes going down one by one because they can't stop this guy in the first fight, and then when he comes back in the second fight, they figure out this is how we have to work together. We can't all go at him one at a time. We got to work together to figure out. That's a kind of fight that I would have gotten excited about. Not, again, another yawn, massive amount of faceless nobodies coming wave after wave. Now, one point I want to bring up since we're on the fight, because this is another big complaint I have, and I don't know if you'll be able to steer me away from this one or not.
Okay.
The big fight in the end of the episode here, of I think this is still episode 4, when they're on that, I guess they're on that planet at the beginning of time, and everything was kind of like a gray color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the dawn of time.
And it's just our Paragons there. The fact, this one really bothered me. This is poor writing. This is poor everything. Ryan Choi, the Paragon of humanity. He's a scared little scientist, doesn't know anything about anything. He's standing there toe to toe with the shadow demons, fighting them. You could see him wildly wailing his arms around, and he's punching these things out, and they're disappearing. Same with Batwoman. Batwoman was completely useless too. She's punching and kicking. Meanwhile, you got Flash and Supergirl ripping around. Ryan Choi, a regular human being, just standing there punching shadow demons and winning, makes these shadow demons totally useless. Because that tells me that any human being could stand there toe to toe and fight these things. And that tells me that we don't need superheroes. Because if all the humans just stood up to fight, we'd win this war, no problem. No superheroes needed. That really, really bothered me that they showed that. Anyway, that's my thought. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I mean, I see where you're coming from with that. I mean, the shadow demons, where we kind of figure out once we see it in the next battle, is that they're really just an extension of the Anti-Monitor's powers. And so, like, that's true. Like, the way that they set them up is that anybody, as long as you're like connecting with them, it's destroying them. But I think like their advantage is, as the Anti-Monitor's power grows and grows, then they just keep multiplying and multiplying until eventually they just overswarm everything. And so, like, I think as long as you can land just any sort of hit, I mean, this is what, I mean, for better or for worse, this is how they wrote it, directed it, whatever. You know, as long as you land a hit, then they'll disappear. But I think that only works until, like, the Anti-Monitor weakens and they, like, totally disappear, or he just gains so much strength that they just would completely overwhelm. I think, I mean, for better or for worse, I mean, that's how they wrote them. So I don't know that I really like have a counter to it, but that's just how I like kind of saw it working. And I didn't really like kind of have a problem with it because of just like the way that they set it up. And also because I felt like, especially at that point in time in this battle, to me, they're the distraction to keep the team busy. They're not the true enemy. The true enemy and the true battle was Anti-Monitor versus Oliver.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I was looking at that first battle.
But we didn't see a single shadow demon bring harm to anything or anybody.
No, but they tried
in the end there,
trying to catch him by surprise. But yeah.
But that's what I mean, is that the writing of this, it completely changed, because in episode 1, it's shadow demons that kill Oliver. He gets overwhelmed and gets punched out by them, basically. They keep hitting him, and that's what causes him to die. And now you're telling me in the big final battle, that's supposed to be the biggest, epic, awesome battle, they're just nothing. And Ryan Choi can stand toe-to-toe, where Oliver gets killed, but Ryan Choi can stand there at the dawn of time and fight. It's ridiculous to me. It took away all of the steam and all of the momentum from these guys being even a threat. And it just bothered me.
All right. I don't have another counter to that.
Aha. I'm gonna have to get a couple on you out of this. I
guess. I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it, but
yeah.
I see your points.
All right, what do you got next? Where do you want to go?
I mean, it's just the final thing that happens, and we've kind of already talked about this, so we can just kind of state it and gloss over it if you want to talk about it at the end, or we can talk about it now. Is just the rebirth of the quote, like Arrowverse or our universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that. Sure.
Yeah, so like we don't see the details of all this until the end of the following episode. I mean, it's obvious that a new multiverse, you know, with Oliver's death and sacrifice, he births a new multiverse. And it's basically brought all of our CW shows under one roof. So I guess this means there's no more doppelgangers? ?
Yeah, well, the main CW shows,
just the
Arrow, Flash, Legends, Supergirl, Black Lightning, they're all now on one Earth.
Yeah.
So my question is, do they didn't just write off all of those shows individual casts, did they?
I don't think
so. They made us see National City there, and most of Supergirl's people there. I mean, we didn't see Brainiac anymore. Black Lightning was still by himself. We have no idea about his daughters or his wife or anything like that. And that's where I also have a bit of a nitpick here. I was talking at work with a guy, and he brought it up. He's like, well, everybody was too happy. They just lost their entire worlds, their entire families, everything, and they didn't show us that all that stuff came back, and yet these heroes are all super happy in the end, especially Black Lightning. He's just like, yeah, we did it. Well, you just lost your daughters a few hours ago.
Yeah, but I don't think any of that stands when they redid the universe, because the only reason that the Paragons remembered is because they're the Paragons. No one else did. I mean, I think that was the whole point of the opening with Lex receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, is that he is considered a great humanitarian.
Yeah, which is cool. That's right out of the comic books and cartoons too, because he does do that a lot. A lot of people believe in him. He tries to be president. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And, so I guess it's just, I was just looking for them to give us a little more answers, which we'll probably get as all the regular shows pick up. There's probably,
I think we'll continue to get that. I think the only thing that changed is everybody's now on the same Earth. I don't think they killed off any cast. I don't think that, as far as they know, they don't remember what happened. They don't remember. Black Lightning doesn't remember that his daughters died, that his entire family disappeared, because to him,
yeah, you're right.
Jean may have restored his actual memories because he's, part of the whole team. But so he may remember that, but I don't think it actually happened anymore. Like, it's not like his family is gone. Like, they're still there. They all live in different cities, so they're all going to go back to their different respective cities.
Yeah.
They're just all on the same Earth for once.
See, now I thought that was something you were going to nitpick about, is how convenient of a plot point that is for Jean to just run around and restore everybody's memories.
Oh, it's extremely convenient, but in a crossover like that, you got to do something.
That's what I mean. Too much to do in so little time. That's just that.
Yeah.
You thought the beginning was rushed? I think they rushed the end way faster than the beginning.
I don't know that the beginning was rushed. I just felt like
Oliver's death and all that kind of stuff.
That was rushed. Yeah.
That's
because all of a sudden it's just like, oh, nope, I'm going to go against everything I was doing for the entire last season and all the lessons that I've learned, and I'm going to let myself die by.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. That's again why I said they reached too far, because they reached way out so far they couldn't bring it back in a timely manner for it to make sense and for it to be believable for me. It was just too fast in the end.
Yeah.
Everything just got too quick, too easy. It's kind of like that finale of Legends of Tomorrow, since this is a Legends podcast, when we just did our rewatch on season 1, and we changed our minds that Vandal Savage was actually a good villain all the way through the season, built himself up to be a really good villain, and they wrapped it up so fast in half an episode at the very end.
Yeah,
again,
that's true. They did.
They rushed it. So that gives me the same feeling here. They rushed it.
Yeah.
But I still, like with everybody being on one Earth, I like that, because that gets rid of all the complications of traveling to multiple Earths and yada, yada, yada.
Exactly.
And I also like how they explain all the other DC property shows are not a part of Earth 1. They got their own individual universes, which allows them to stay separate so they don't have to bring them over. That was a smart little thing.
Yeah, I thought that was a smart move, and I liked that they did that. So I think that's how this new multiverse works, is, I guess, maybe no more doppelgangers, but now we've got all of our, shows on their respective Earths, or all of our properties, I guess, the different versions of each of the things on their own Earth, so they can all exist by themselves.
Yeah. But I do like that Jefferson, aka Black Lightning, is now part of everybody. Because there's something about him. I really enjoyed how he interacted with everybody. He seemed to fit right in. Mm-hmm. In a way, it's like he's gotten to know his character so well, and it was easy to transition over to be part of this team, part of this superhero team up. He fit in really well. He had great chemistry with everybody he was in the scene with. So that to me was a real highlight, even though I've stopped watching his own show because I just too many TV shows, and I didn't like his enough to continue with it after season 1. I like him. Yeah. And I like his character, and he's a good performer. So, I'll be looking forward to seeing more of him, if they do little crossovers and mini events, something like that. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
Now, another point, I just want to throw in something that's funny here. For me, it's a good point, even though it's a negative point. Did you notice that in these last 2 episodes, there was no Iris West at all?
Oh, yeah, no, there wasn't.
And it was so good. I was so glad she wasn't there.
Don't like Iris.
Even in the first 3 episodes, every single scene that she was in, I'd say if she was in 10 scenes, 9 out of the 10 scenes was just her and Barry holding each other and having this, mushy, like, oh my God, enough, guys, enough. I don't care that the Flash is the paragon of love. It's too much now. You're starting to make me gag with the love story between the two of them. It's not believable anymore. It's too much, too over the top. I'm getting very upset with that whole thing. Give Iris something to do other than that, and it was so refreshing to not have her part of the finale.
Harsh. I don't mind Iris as much. That's kind of funny.
Well, it allowed Barry to be a hero, to go out and do heroic things and be part of the battle, instead of every time we see him on screen, he's got to have this little lovey-dovey moment with Iris. It's too much. We don't need that. It's too much.
All right. Well, let's move into our Legends episode. The There's really just like a couple big things. I mean, ironically, I think the meat of what we needed and wanted to talk about didn't really revolve around our Legends proper episode at all.
I know. It didn't feel like a Legends episode at all.
It didn't really. It actually felt like an Arrow episode to me, more so.
I think with the characters that were involved in the story they were telling is where it didn't feel like, but with the things they did,
it was very
Big Blue Fuzzy and other stuff, like it had the stupidity of our Legend. Because remember, I was asking you, we're in the crossover podcast, I said we're either going to get our goofy Legend story or we're going to get the really hardcore, serious Legend story that it can be good at. And they gave us the goofy side of Legends.
They gave us the goofy side of Legends, but they gave us the more serious side of Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think.
So they kind of mixed it a little bit, yeah.
I think they mixed it up a little bit, which is nice because that kind of goes back to her arrow roots. And I mean, I really like this. So I want to talk about, the point where she's kind of like taking the reins of the Arrowverse, or like in the Arrow cave. She's kind of quarterbacking the whole thing, to use a very Legends phrase. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I liked that she was kind of stepping in to coach the team and like tell them what to do. I mean, Bebo shows up, of course. I mean, I hate that it had to be Bebo, but for the banter alone that we got out of that, it was hilarious because they're all like, how is this happening? Is this for real? Does this happen all the time? And it was just so funny because I feel like that's how everybody feels about Legends. It's like, it's so goofy. It's so over the top. And I just loved that they had the actors actually like voicing that. And oh man, it just was so funny to me, all the way down to like Barry's 20-second synopsis of our Bebo season finale. So it's like, oh, I guess you can sum that up quickly.
Which is pretty funny. I'll agree with you on that point with Barry there. You said something really good, and then you shifted it into the Bebo thing to just totally counter it. I almost didn't even have to say anything because let me get the Bebo thing out of the way first, and then I'll come back to the one really good points about Sarah that you were talking about. The Bebo thing drove me crazy. Everybody knows I hate Bebo, and I never wanted to see him come back. But what really bugged me about this, the fact that they even brought him back, it makes our Legends show look like the goofball joke of the Arrowverse. And if for people that don't watch Legends because they like the serious comic book stuff, they're going to look at that and just go, oh my God, no wonder I don't watch that show. That bugs me for viewership of Legends. But what bothered me about this whole scene, and I know Bebo wasn't the actual him, it was, it was a projection or a made up event by that whoever that magician was, robbing the bank. Mm-hmm. Whatever he was, it doesn't matter. Bebo was still there and they were still trying to fight him, still trying to figure out. What bothers me is they can't take him down. This was not the Bebo that we saw fight Mollis. This was, like the Ghostbusters scene, the Marshmallow Man. It was very similar to that. They had to fight him.
Yes and no. Keep going. Sorry,
they should have. I mean, he was still physically there because when the thing stopped, he melted down into a pile of blue goo at the end.
Sort of, but when they pulled the rope that was around him, it just went straight through him like he was a complete illusion.
I didn't see this. I saw him. He was because he turned to blue goo. That's why the rope went through him. It kind of cut his feet because he's just made of blue goo, and he kind of melted to a big puddle after that. That's why the rope just went through him. That's how I took it. So I don't know. I'll be curious what anyone else thinks of that. But just the point that bugged me, and maybe I'm completely wrong if he wasn't actually there, is the fact that they couldn't take him down. You've got Flash, you've got Supergirl, you've got all these superpowered people there. Supergirl herself should be able to fly up to Bebo, pick him up, slam him down, beat on him, and defeat him easily. And they're all standing there acting like a bunch of idiots. Oh, what do we do? And Flash could have ran circles around. Flash could have thrown his lightning at him. Could have done so much, and they did nothing. They're all acting like a bunch of dummies and not knowing what to do. It's a giant fur ball. Go beat it up. Get rid of it. Whatever. It bothered me that they just didn't do what the superheroes should have done.
Well, to be fair, at that point, Sarah had already stepped in and said, okay, we're going to do this. She's like, okay, you and you go. And then she's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. Like, it wasn't really I didn't feel like it was as much hesitation on their part so much as it was Sarah just saying, Bebo's our thing. This is a Legends thing. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, kind of deal.
Well, then she should have said, yeah, well, go beat him up. Supergirl, go punch him out. Fly him up to the sky and drop him from 100 miles up. I don't know. Like, it's Supergirl. She could single-handedly take him down.
Well, technically, she was trying to have Barry single-handedly take him down by pulling on a rope.
But, okay. Going back to Sarah, since we keep bringing her up, I loved what you said about her becoming the new lead. This to me is a little bit of a surprise because
really?
I think, well, when you look at who else kind of, a lot of people are talking about it's going to change to become the Flashverse. And they're thinking Flash and Barry are going to be the new leader of the team because him and Oliver have had the longest kind of buddy-buddy relationship. And it, if someone's going to become the new leader, Oliver is going to pass it on to Flash's shoulders, which is why he's been telling Barry so much, this is what you got to do, yada, yada, whatever. So that's why I was a little bit of surprise that it looks like Sarah is going to become the new leader. But what I like about it is it's Sarah. She's our captain of the Wave Rider. She's the captain and leader of our show. And we've talked about it on Legends here so many times in the past season, the growth of Sarah Lance, how we've seen her go. And this is what's cool about showing the flashbacks of her dying and all the talk about her, being brought back to life with the Lazarus Pit. That's what they dealt with in episode 2 here. Mm-hmm. And they kind of very lightly went through Sarah's full history in this Arrowverse, and it leads up to her growing to be the leader of our team. Well, why wouldn't the next step for her be lead everything? She knows Oliver very well. She's from that part of the world. She's flying around on a time ship now, but she's got the same background that Oliver has. So to me, it just makes sense to let her step up and take the reins and have our fearless captain take charge of everything. And it comes to that scene with her and Barry sitting on the steps outside, which is, I know, something that you want to talk about here. I love that moment with the two of them talking to each other. It's like, we know how Oliver and Barry talk to each other, and those are some of my favorite moments that we've ever had in all the crossovers, was Barry and Oliver having their scenes together. And we know Oliver and Sarah have their scenes together, so now it's Barry and Sarah, and they're talking to each other like they talk to Oliver, but Oliver's no longer there, so they have to talk to each other. And this is the first time I think we've ever seen them to have a serious moment together. Mm-hmm. Barry and Sarah. So it was a really nice kind of spark of this new relationship that they now have to rely on each other. Oliver is not there anymore. Now it's the two of them, the respective leaders of their own teams. Now they've got to, work together and figure things out and kind of build a friendship amongst them, because the cog in the wheel that tied the two of them together is gone. So now they have to hold on to each other. And I really like that.
Yeah, no, I really like that too. I thought that was a fantastic scene. I absolutely loved the two of them bonding. They've both experienced a lot of loss, and I think it was a great scene. See, I'm not so sure that it's necessarily setting up Sarah to kind of maybe lead everyone in the same way that Oliver led everyone. I think what they set up is exactly what you said, is that Sarah and Barry are learning to support one another, and that instead of them going to Oliver or looking to Oliver, or everyone looking to Oliver, they're all going to look to each other. I don't think it's necessarily everyone's going to start looking to Sarah or everyone's going to start looking to Barry. I think everyone is just going to pitch in and learn to rely on each other and learn to lean on each other. And I think that was very strongly enforced by the introduction of the Justice League table. There is no head of that table. Everyone is there equally to support one another.
Knights of the Round Table. No, I agree with you. That's a good way to explain it, for sure. And that kind of calls back to what I was saying, is where I think everyone is expecting Barry to take over and be the new leader. That's why they're, what are we going to call it? It's going to be the Flashverse, obviously. The way you're explaining it, they're kind of melding everything. Arrow spearheaded everything. Arrow kicked off all these other shows. Now, without Arrow there is no leader. So all the other shows are on equal ground now.
That's kind of how, I'm seeing it.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, and I like that. And everyone is going to step up, because what they showcased was Sarah's leadership abilities, which is something they've nurtured in her character on Legends. And the same thing with Barry. I mean, and he's had that opportunity to kind of like showcase his talent. So I liked that Sarah was able to showcase her leadership abilities, because I mean, she leads a team every day, you know, that's her role. And I mean, just one thing I did want to, since this is a Legends episode, before we get in, you know, to the final endings, I did like that there was a nice callback to the totems. I mean, it goes back to Bebo, but it wasn't the real Bebo. So I liked that they at least acknowledged that you have to have all 6 totems, and where's Bayrod, and, you know, just like making sure that it couldn't be like an actual real Bebo. So I thought that was just kind of a good nod and kind of cool.
I was a little bit upset that we didn't get our full Legends cast. Nate got to have a few lines, as well as Ava, but the two of them were just kind of back on the ship. And where they were trying to be funny, I didn't laugh. Like, they kept talking about, I didn't want you guys part of the crossover. Damn it, we missed the crossover again. They've done that joke every single time, and it's just not as funny now. I wanted to see our team. I wanted to see everybody at least get a moment on screen somehow, and we didn't. We got Nate and Ava just a little bit, and they didn't even get to do anything.
Yeah, they didn't really do anything, but Mick had a pretty big role throughout the whole thing, and so did Sarah. So
well, it was
Ray had a good
Mick, Sarah, and Ray, the originals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think that makes sense. The core characters got to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mick was in it, but he didn't really have a lot to do. He was kind of the comedy relief in the first 3 episodes. Kind of.
Yes.
For the little bit that he was
the
there.
Comic relief in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even really get to fight much, but, you know, still.
Well, his patented die furball, or whatever he says.
Yeah, furball. Which, Lizzie, speaking of characters not showing up, or characters not having anything to do, again, for the Arrow part, or the Arrow episode, our Arrow cast again. I was like, well, finally, let's get Dinah and Renee into this. They also, Renee was really not even in it at all. He was there for a little bit, shot his guns a little bit, but that was it. But the part that bugged me with Dinah, because I'm a huge fan of Dinah, did you notice in this last episode, every single scene she was in, she did the exact same thing. And this is where I'm harking on the directing. Every single scene, she grabs a tablet, she's punching on the tablet, she's walking across the Arrow Cave. She did it 3 times in a row, the exact same thing. Walk across the Arrow Cave with the tablet in her hand, saying, "Oh my God, something, something, something." Whatever it was, her lines were. It was identical 3 times over. And I thought, really, director? This is as creative as you can get for Dinah?
I don't like that character very much. So.
But even still, like her or not, you do something different. If she's going to get 3 scenes in this episode, don't make her do the exact same thing 3 times in a row. It stood out like a blinking red light to me. Like, holy cow, that was
I
pitiful.
didn't notice it, but I also, I'm not her biggest fan.
Oh.
Her character has been way too up and down for my taste. All right.
You got a couple more points here coming up to the end of episode 5, right?
Yes. So this is the final battle with the Anti-Monitor, where we're going to officially defeat him. Just wanted to point it out that they actually had some real science in this part, which was kind of cool. They were kind of playing on the idea that matter is neither created nor destroyed, or its counterpart, which would be antimatter. So I enjoyed that the solution of using their tech was basically to kind of like keep him shrinking for eternity, because, I mean, you can't destroy him, so you can never completely ever get rid of him. So to have him actively just getting smaller and smaller and smaller, which I would assume just continues to diminish his power, I thought that was smart. And even for comic book science, it was kind of an elegant solution that made sense. So I liked that.
I'm with you there. I'm with you on that point. It's almost like I love it, but we just saw that in the Avengers movies too. The whole quantum realm and shrinking things down in unbelievably small.
Which
so
would
cool, yes.
Yes, that's where they took it from. If I had to make a guess. But But I guess this is where I kind of came, like, by those same properties. I sort of came to the conclusion, especially with the ending monologue, that Oliver is the new Monitor, because in theory, if he was that sort of ethereal thing, or that version of the being that has to start the universe, you can't really destroy him either. So I don't know. I'm kind of holding out hope that maybe he wasn't destroyed, but what that means for his character, I don't really know. Yeah. We already talked about that a bit, but...
Well, the thing with the Anti-Monitor being shrunk down endlessly, I mean, essentially he's still there. They didn't get rid of him, but it means he'll never come back again. I mean, unless he figures out a way, down there, I have no idea. But it just makes me think that the antimatter universe can't come back anymore, because he's been shrinking so small. And like you said, his powers are also shrinking. So that, in essence, they did get rid of him in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But this is something that I super want to highlight, that I absolutely loved, is when this is Ray and Wells. Who was designing that tech to shrink?
Ray, Nash Wells, and Ryan Choi.
Yeah, like these are the scientist guys that you and me have been talking about for how many seasons of Legends now? We want them to use their science smarts.
Yes.
And they got to do it here, and they created this thing. The scene that I loved out of that, though, is when they were running out of time. Mm-hmm. And they're like, and Barry shows up. What can I do to help? Well, here's the instructions. Here's the thing. Done. Here you go. Oh, thanks. Flash should have been able to do that through 5 seasons of The Flash. Every time they need something.
They've never had a need to speed things up on The Flash. They always have to drag it out. You got 22 episodes to kill a villain.
Yeah, so beautiful, though. I mean, that's exactly The Flash. That's his abilities. That's, whether he wants to rearrange his apartment, whether he needs to build something or repair the Star Labs, Flash can do it, and he can do it fast. And it comes down to the same thing. How many times do we complain on the Flash TV show when he's chasing a bad guy, or he has a fight with a bad guy, and the bad guy leaves the room, runs out the doorway,
and he doesn't go look.
And he's like, oh, he got away. Well, Flash, why don't you run after him? You can,
because it's only episode 2.
Exactly. And they also highlighted that in the scene we were just talking about with him and Sarah. He runs up to her and sits down, and she's like, how'd you find me? Well, did you hear that wind that blew by? Did you feel that wind that blew by? Yeah, well, that was me. I just did a perimeter search around the city. I found you. Well, hello. You could do that in every single episode of The Flash when you guys can't find something.
Yes.
This episode made so much fun of The Flash. I don't think they even realized it. Maybe they did. Maybe the writers are making fun of themselves. But, oh my God, they just fixed everything that I've been complaining about The Flash. Yeah. That this is how you use him. This is how you use his abilities. Yes. No bad guy could ever get away by just leaving the doorway or leaving out the hallway. Yes. And if you need something done fast, just say, hey, Flash, help us. All right.
Yeah, I think there was a lot just throughout the last 2 episodes, really, where they were kind of like poking fun at things. There were so many little one-liners, so many, where they're put down to like making fun of the Monitor's costume and just all the little different things. The whole banter about Bebo, and is like, is this really a thing? Like, this is crazy. Oh, I guess I could be explaining, like that whole thing. Like, just all of that was just so funny to me. There was a lot of good humor throughout the whole thing.
Yes, those are the positive points for me, for sure. That kind of stuff.
Well, in the whole battle, I mean, I'm with you. Like, the first battle, there just wasn't as much like action that was happening. So what I really liked about the second one is I thought the effects were great. I thought it was really cool with them going up against the Anti-Monitor, and you got to see every hero kind of trying to like come at him and like breach that bubble, which obviously, like it never worked. It almost looked like all he did was just absorb all their energy so he could, grow Jaimundo or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
But I liked that whole montage. I thought it was fun to watch.
Are you talking about that, like when he grew really big?
Just like before he grows really big, where they're the first part of the battle where they're trying to defeat him, but then basically like buy time so they can make the little shrinky bomb. And then right as he goes like really big, that's when the Flash goes and finishes the bomb, and kind of then they come back with like, you know, the quote fly team, you know, trying to distract him and do all of that. And then they, you know, throw the bomb and save the day and all that. Yeah,
because he was in some type of force field before he grew. He was in some type of force field. So, I mean, the effects were good. And I liked everybody using their different abilities. And it was, and that's where we saw Renee and we saw Diggle shooting their guns. I mean, that's where I kind of laugh. Like, those kind of heroes are a little bit useless at this point in time when you're facing a cosmic being. A soldier with a gun just can't do anything.
Or a man with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, but
can't do anything.
He's got some pretty cool high-tech trick arrows, though, that do a lot more than a bullet does, so.
Well, he already used up his special anti-monitor arrow.
His anti-monitor, yeah, exactly. But that sequence was pretty good, and, you know, when he did grow and they were still using their abilities, I liked that sequence, but I didn't like what they did with Supergirl. That this is where these two episodes got really... So much stuff was so cheesy and so corny, and they did too much slow motion that just didn't work. We don't need to see Supergirl flying in slow motion to when there's nothing around her. Like there were so many shots of her just in the sky, and she's flying at the camera, and it looked so bad, so corny, because you see her. You guys can't see me, but she punches out with one arm. And then she tucks it back, and then she punches out with two arms. Yeah. And she tucks it back, and then she puts her arms behind her back, and she's flying, and she's just, and this is what I thought you would complain about, because you don't like the actress, and she's looking goofy. She's grunting and like I'm flying faster now. Really, I am. But to us, it's all slow motion, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is the directing. It looks bad. You guys could do so much better by now. How many years have we been doing these shows? You guys can do better with the superhero powers. It's same with what I complained about in episode 2 when the two Supermen were fighting. Yeah. That their body positioning and the way they were moving, it looked so bad. These guys do not look like tough Supermen. They looked like little, I don't know. It looked wrong. So.
I know. I feel like I've harped on that so many times, though, that I just sort of like glossed over it because I was just involved in like the bigger story. And so like just watching her do her thing, I was just like, okay, whatever, you know, that's like Supergirl. I kind of don't really care about this part, you know, whatever. But yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a combination of like almost like overacting to illustrate the point. But like the cheesy campy corniness of that show, I just can't do it. So I mean, it's just one of those things that by this point in this stage in the game, I was kind of like glossing over it. I mean, I didn't think she was like god awful. Her acting has definitely improved as the seasons have gone on. But you know, there's just points where I'm just like, you're whatever it is that you do to get across your point. A lot of people think it's cute. I just don't. Like, I don't think it's cute at all.
Even her throw. Her throw looked bad.
Oh, the throw, no, it definitely looked like she was thrown like a girl. Sorry, ladies. I can throw pretty well, but that was a terrible throw.
I'm glad you said it, because that's what when they handed off her the ball, they're like, throw it like a girl. Like, okay, cool, we're going to have a good moment here. And then she throws it really wimpily, like oh. It was
a terrible throw. I don't think that actress has ever thrown a baseball in her life.
No. Yeah. So anyway, that whole sequence, it was awful. Yes, the effects were good. I agree with you there. Yes, a lot of the other stuff with them fighting and trying to work together, which is what I was saying, I think is what they need when he grew really big and they're all taking a shot. I love that he smacks her down out of the air, and you know, it was all great. But when they focus just on her, too campy and too corny for me. I don't want that in my superhero TV shows. I want awesome superhero moments.
Yeah, I think I just kind of gloss over. I just write it off. I'm like, it's Supergirl.
Maybe that's a smart way to do it. It's the same. It's why I can't accept Batwoman as Batwoman. She just does not look like a hero to me, and her fighting is not believable at all either.
Yeah.
before we get to your last point, because I want to end this on a high note, two more things I do kind of want to address. I want to see what you feel about them. A question here. We watched Lila go from Lila to becoming Harbinger, and she's supposed to be working with the Monitor and all that. We didn't even see her show up at all in these last two episodes until the very end. And suddenly she's sitting on a couch with their two kids, and I bet you there's a lot of fans happy. Yay, finally baby Sarah's back.
Sarah's back.
Boy, that's a course correct, because I'm sure that was just nothing but fan service right there because of 100%. How many people complained about it. So I hope I'm tired of hearing about it, so I hope everybody's happy they got baby Sarah back. But Lila's sitting there on the couch. No explanation at all as to what happened to her. Does she lose? Does she even remember being Harbinger? Is she no longer Harbinger? What happened to all that? There was no explanation at all. She just disappeared, and she comes back as Lila. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's a new universe. I think the key point that people cannot forget is this is a brand new universe. So the whole thing where Nash became Pariah and she became Harbinger never happened.
So that it's just forgotten about.
Yeah, well, unless, I mean, we don't know this until maybe the next Arrow episode if John gave her memories. I mean, everybody else got their memories, so perhaps she got hers.
Yeah. But how do you explain it? So with Oliver becoming the Monitor in the end, I mean, she's the Monitor's sidekick. Where was the transition? We last saw her as Harbinger. Where's the
but she's not
transition
Harbinger anymore because it's a new universe. That's how I took it.
We didn't see her in the fight. We didn't see her lose her powers. We didn't see anything. I just want a little bit.
They destroyed everything. She was part of, everybody died. The whole antimatter wave. The only thing that survived were the Paragons.
That's the point I was wanting you to get at. Right. So, because they destroyed Earth 1 and it was only the 7 Paragons left.
Correct.
So she's gone. So when the universe gets reborn, she's just Lila again. Okay.
Correct.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, because none of that ever happened.
See, that we didn't even get to see her disappear with everybody. That's the thing. I just felt like they left her a little bit undone, her story there. So that's all.
Yeah, no, that's my counter to that and how it works for me.
All right. One final thing I want to get into a little bit here is the very ending of the show. It was nice to see the Paragon, our main heroes, all pay their tributes to Oliver. They all get to say their little piece about him. That was really nice. I liked what they had to say. It was really nice. But it was the atmosphere, the surroundings that they were in, the arrow suit in a glass case in an empty warehouse, which is, the new Hall of Justice, whatever. We all know that part is fun. But it's the exact same Hall of Justice we saw in the last crossover. Are you telling me that in a year, Barry has done nothing to it? He hasn't dressed it up a little bit. He obviously had this plan to make it a new headquarters, to make it a new place for them all to meet. It should have looked a little bit different than what we last saw a year ago, and it wasn't. It's Oliver. They're paying this beautiful tribute to Oliver, and it's a glass case in an empty warehouse, and that to me was a bit of a gut punch, a bit disrespect towards Oliver again. That's not fair to everything that he has done for this Arrowverse. You should have him in a much nicer situation. I want to see. So I'm hoping that's something they come back and correct in maybe the last 2 Arrow episodes, maybe in another crossover. I don't know. I want it to have a nice setting. I want to have that thing with a background behind it, just something to just. I just like, come on, an empty warehouse? Are you kidding me? That's all he's going to get. I would have been happier if it. I would have been happier if they left it in the Arrow Cave. Because obviously the Arrow team's going to continue on or whatever. It should have stayed in the Arrow Cave.
That is super nitpicky. I could care less what the background looks like. The fact that they did the tribute was all that mattered.
Do you think so?
I think so.
I don't know. I needed more.
I think you're being really nitpicky because you were pissed at how the whole thing turned out, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Well, you can be. I only expect that. I'm being really honest. That bothers me. I think Oliver deserved more than a glass case in an empty warehouse. That's not good enough. It's not good enough for everything that he's done for this entire Arrowverse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that as disrespectful. I feel like that's where it needs to be because that's the new setting of the Justice League or the Super Friends or however you want to look at this going forward.
I like what they did with the table at the end there. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing this team together, they're all of equal stance. I love that. I love the moment. They're all happy. They're all smiling. They're all having a seat at the table. I love the symbols on the back of the chairs. I love that Oliver gets one and no one's ever going to sit in it. That was all beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I just, it's been a year. It should have looked different. They should have been more, it should have been more dressed up. It should have looked a little bit more like the Hall of Justice. Let's Barry, come on. You just built the bomb that destroyed the Anti-Monitor in a second, so you could have dressed this thing up in the weekend.
Well, that's what they have to do in the next crossover.
Yes.
I think that's a bit nitpicky, but...
Well, that's why I warned you this was going to be nitpicky. I am Eobard Thawne right now, so...
Yes. All right.
You cannot change my mind on that one, but you've got one last point that I think is a fantastic one to end on, a fun one.
It is a fantastic, fun one. So we have talked about the table and the fact that it's the Hall of Justice and the obvious introduction of the Justice League or the Super Friends or however you want to look at that. So I love the final Easter egg that completely went over my head that I had to look up on our Facebook group. Thank you, everyone who posted about what Gleek is. But that was a nice shout out to us, of course.
Yes, because if those of you who've been with us from the beginning, me and Harley here used to call ourselves the Wonder Twins.
Indeed we did.
And if you hear any of our old episodes, I use the Wonder Twins music for a lot of our stuff. And actually in our sound effects and stuff, it's a lot of the Super Friends cartoon stuff and the Wonder Twins stuff. When you hear Form of Water, when you hear Shape of an Eagle, Wonder Twin powers activate, that's where that all comes from, in case you didn't know.
Yep. So I loved that final little nod. And the music, did you hear the music?
It was the Super Friends music, yes.
Friends music.
It was awesome. Now, a question though, let's end this on a theory, because that's what's the best part about our podcast is the theories and the questions and what can we talk about. Gleek, they show a cage very similar to Grodd's cage on The Flash. They show a cage of Gleek, and you hear him laughing like he just escaped and got out of here. Well, in the cartoons, Gleek is the Wonder Twins' little blue alien monkey, and there's nothing bad about him at all. He helps them in all of their situations. And yet this ended with him seemingly sounding like an evil little laugh that he's escaped. Why he's in a cage, I have no idea. So are they leaning towards him possibly becoming some type of villain in the future?
No, I don't think so. So the whole thing, it's another one of these classic, just like throwaway lines where, someone just drops some exposition. But Barry says it was an old Star Labs research facility. And so I think we're meant to go down that trail of, Grodd was experimented on and became, a sentient being or whatever. So I think that we're supposed to get on that same path that Gleek is more of like a sentient monkey. But I heard it as being as more of like a mischievous kind of fun laugh, not really an evil one. So okay. I think it's meant to be a nod to the Wonder Twins and the Super Friends and all of that. So I don't think he'll come out as a villain. I think he'll appear as a kind of like a fun thing.
Well, that's why I asked. I don't know how they're going to do it. That would have to be some pretty heavy special effects unless I don't know how they would do a monkey. I mean, mind you.
Just always have the sound effect in the rafters. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, that would be great. And I would so love for them to bring the Wonder Twins in just for fun.
Yeah.
As actual characters. I mean, hopefully that wasn't just a tease and they're not going to do anything with it. I mean, it would be cool. And we can.
They teased the Green Lantern Earth pretty hard.
Yes, they showed us in one of those alternate worlds or alternate universes the Green Lantern flying. I mean, it was scenes right out of the Green Lantern movie. Yeah. They totally pulled it, but it's still a hint because there is talk out there about there being a Green Lantern TV show coming.
Yeah.
And I think Green Lantern would make a fantastic TV show. It'll special effects heavy, but that is a story that I would rather see on a TV format, week to week, hour to hour, to really expand on that world and universe to get you to understand it. Because I don't think the movie, even though everyone hated the movie, I enjoyed it. It just didn't explain that world and that universe and how all of that, the yellow rings and the green rings and how it all works.
Yeah.
You need a weekly series to really get into that. So hopefully.
That would be interesting. That would be pretty on board for that. That would be cool.
Yeah. Cool. Any other final points that we can talk about? That's kind of fun stuff. I mean,
not that I can think of. I mean, there's tons of stuff, and I'm sure we've missed some stuff, but we've been talking for almost 2 hours at this point. So
I got one.
Oh,
Brandon Routh getting to be Superman from the movies one last time.
Yes, I loved that. That was very cool.
Not the Kingdom Come Superman. He is the Superman from the movies, and you saw him smile at the camera as he flies away. What a moment for him. It's amazing. I hope... I still wonder about him. How much is he going to be part of our last season?
I have been looking at behind-the-scenes stuff, so I can't tell you.
Oh, so you've gone spoiler ahead on us.
Well, I follow a lot of the writers and directors on Twitter and a lot of the actors on Twitter. So,
okay.
So
you kind of know.
Yes, I do. So I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, cool. Well, I know he's at least in there for a little bit because he's been part of the trailers. So cool. All right. Well, we do have 2 favorite scenes, guys. It's a Legend staple. We got 2 favorite scenes out of this last 2 episodes. Let's get into those real quick.
Shape out an eagle!
See, that was Wonder Twins. That was, what are their names? Jan and Jaina? So that was Jaina?
Yeah.
All right, let's kick it off with yours. What, out of these last 2 episodes, what did you go for your favorite scene?
It was one of my ratings. I had to go with the Rebecca Silver book signing. Of course.
Of course.
And who should I make this out to?
Doris. I'm such a huge fan, Rebecca. I mean, what should I call you?
Rebecca's fine. To Doris, thanks for the passion, love.
Oh my, I let Bebo be part of our show. How could I do that?
I was just about to say the same thing. I'm shocked he didn't cut it off.
Because I had to get Mick saying verbal at the end.
I know, it's so funny.
Awesome. Yeah, good moment for Mick that he's acknowledging he is Rebecca and the fans are accepting of that. That's pretty funny.
It's amazing.
We'll have to see where they go with that. All right. Well, I gave it away earlier. It was the scene where they bring in Ezra Miller's Flash from the movies.
Yes.
That is the biggest OMG WTF surprise of this entire thing. I don't know if they leaked that anywhere. I don't know if anybody knew that was coming.
I think some people it was like a wish list item for some people, but not like the specific scene, but just like, to pull in from the movie universe. But the fact that they got Ezra Miller to do it, oh my gosh, I loved it.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not a big fan of his version of the Flash. I complained quite a bit about his version. Just a lot of it. It's so different from our Barry Allen, and you saw the difference between the way these 2 actors perform the Barry Allen. But him being here and seeing them play off of each other, I absolutely loved it, and it made me love him for this moment. It was so cool to see. I love the way they're checking each other's suit out, and they're both doing their own nerdy science. Barry, which it was just so good. But what does this mean for this universe now? They've now just made canon that the movie universe is part of the TV universe. It's all the same. Or do we just write it off that, oh, no, that was just part of the Speed Force. It's gone now.
No, I don't think we write it off. I think it's its own Earth. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with that.
Unless they both forget, they're both going to know that each other is out there.
Yeah, I don't think they'll forget because Barry's a Paragon, so he can't forget. Mm-hmm. And because at that point, Barry was saying, what does this even mean? Because that very clearly was not a memory.
Yeah.
So I think that's a nod. I definitely think it's a nod. And at the end, he says, what does Ezra Miller say? He says something like, I told Victor this was possible.
Yeah. So probably multiverses or something
Like that.
Going into the speed. Yeah. Something is probably what he's referring to. What I like is that he hadn't named himself the Flash yet. And when our Barry says the Flash, he's like, Flash? Flash. Oh, I like
pick
it.
Up on that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is where they're basically saying the movie version of Flash gets his name from the TV version Flash that tells him.
Love it.
Which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
All right, well, I got that scene here, so we'll just play that one out.
Hello? What the hell is this?
I'm asking myself the same question. Literally. No, this can't be happening. What are you doing here?
Well, I'll tell you that when you tell me where here is. Is this cosplay? Oh, do you want a selfie, bro?
No,
I'm sorry.
we're not. No. I'm also the Flash.
You're also the what?
The Flash?
The Flash? The Flash?
It's complicated.
I like your outfit. It seems
Thinking
comfy.
yours is pretty cool.
Smooth.
Seems safe and
breathable. Found Barry Allen. No! What does that mean? How can this...
this should be impossible now.
It should be impossible now?
You don't know about the...
Oh my God, don't do this to me. I don't know about the what. Okay. I told Victor this was possible.
What does this mean?
Oh, wow. It's so funny.
It was hilarious. Your costume seems comfy. Yours seems safe.
Breathable. All of it. I loved those two guys together, and it made me appreciate Ezra Miller's Flash so much more. So
Great.
Yeah, I loved it. Just cracking me up, and good stuff. Good stuff.
So great.
Well, you know what, Harley? We actually got some feedback, a little bit, a couple of them.
All right.
Let's get into see what I don't know if it's good feedback. We'll have to find out. I kind of glanced through a little bit, so we'll see. But let's do that.
Oh.
Planetary powers, activate!
Now I hope everyone understands now where those sound clips come from.
Yeah, I know. If they didn't already.
All right. Well, we got an email in from someone we have not heard from in a long, long time. He goes by the name of Arcphase. He's my coworker. I talked to him a lot about it today. So, Harley, I'm going to let you read this one.
Oh, okay.
I have a feeling I know what's coming, but I want to hear it in your voice, what he says, and then I'll be able to respond to it. So it's not all me. I want you to read it so then I can respond.
Okay. That sounds good. All right. Greetings, Wonder Twins. Apologies for the long silence. I have been stuck in between the void of the multiverse and have been stuck there until the multiverse started collapsing. Fortunately, I escaped just to get wiped out by the antimatter wave just like everybody else. That's funny. Anyways, I hope Gleek isn't causing you too much trouble. I had to search up who Gleek was since I knew nothing of him. Sames. For this two-part end, I found it a little underwhelming compared to how the part 3 had ended before Christmas. Ryan was an intro character that we will be seeing more of most likely, but his role seemed rather small. Yes. Also, while hoping Lex Luthor played a bigger part in the crisis after the end of part 3, his role in the whole event seemed very unnecessary. During the whole crisis, he's been following his own agenda and has been way more in the way of the rest of our heroes instead of helping them out. But isn't that Lex Luthor's MO? Just my 2 cents. That was
yeah, but that's something we didn't bring up. Because you were so upset with him even being here in the first 3 parts. I for sure thought you were going to be. I for sure thought you were going to be more upset with what he had to do here because he was kind of useless and kind of in the way, and it bothered me to have him here and steal so much screen time from someone else, from one of the other cool characters.
But he actually felt like he was being a villain and a foil, which I think is why I had less of a problem with it. I mean, yeah, he was being a giant pain in the ass and he was in the way, but that felt more like what he should be doing. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, that's why I just thought you would have a different reaction to him because you hated him in the first time.
I sure did. Sure didn't really care about him at all or any of the Supergirl stuff in the second 2 parts. I sort of just blocked them out of my mind. Anyway, all right, so continuing with his email. It was a little frustrating seeing Ryan and the Martian Manhunter fighting the shadow demons by basically swinging their arms around and seeing how difficult it seemed for them to take them out even with the Flash and Supergirl. Also, the unsatisfying second death of Oliver wasn't really a great send-off for the character. Oh, so I completely disagree with you, but I already said my piece.
Yeah, but see, he's with me there again. Ryan flailing his arms around, taking out the shadow demons when it seemed to be difficult for Flash and Supergirl to take him out. It just doesn't jive. It's wrong.
So I didn't feel like it was difficult for them to take him out. I felt like they were taking out a higher volume of them because they were more powerful, and everybody else was just like doing what they could to not be consumed by them. Is how I took it. Anyways, agree to disagree. Despite the new merged universe for our heroes, more questions came up than answers. For the Flash, family and friends are very important for him, but there were no signs of Iris, Joe, Ralph, or even Cisco during the whole time he was back. Okay,
yes.
I'm gonna stop right here, y'all. You can't have everyone's entire cast. That's way too many people. Even core cast at this point is too many people. You're going to have to wait till their shows come back to get the closure with the whole cast. I'm sorry. I'm calling bunk on all of that.
But he has a point, though, that the Flash being the paragon of love and how much they forced down our throat, him and Iris, through the first 3 episodes, one of them should have been here. We should have saw some sense of loss from them, some sense of something. I mean, all that science stuff, Cisco should have been there for all that science stuff. Yes, we got Wells, but Cisco is the gadget maker.
And then you would have had 10, and so is Ray Palmer, and it was a Legends episode. So then he would have had 10 cooks in the kitchen. Cisco kind of already had his moment.
They should have, Flash was the only one here. They should have had somebody. I'm agreeing with them.
I'm not. I'm calling BS on that. All right. Most of the Legends were on the Wave Rider, and surprisingly, Ava wasn't even by Sarah's side in her time of sorrow over the disappearance of Oliver. That's because Ava didn't know about it. Anyways, Black Lightning, for those who watch it, know that his family was wiped out by the antimatter wave, but there's no mention. Okay, I'm just going to have to read this without commenting because I completely disagree with everything here. But there is no mention of them. He seemed a little too cheery for a man who has lost his family not too long ago. Then there was the whole no mention of Mia, William, Connor from the future. There was, I believe Diggle mentioned that Connor was gone. But anyways. And Dinah gets sidelined the whole time. Yes, I don't care about Dinah being sidelined.
This is the stuff that we talked about at work. And I already said it earlier in the podcast. They all seemed a little too happy at the end. Because, yes, the universe was reborn, but they hadn't gone home to make sure their family is back again or check or anything. They hadn't checked on any of that, and yet they're super happy.
You don't know that. Things can happen off screen. No, you don't.
I am Eobard. I ran around. I did a quick landscape check of the world, and yeah.
Anyways, Superman somehow didn't know about his sons, despite how his memory should be the same as everyone else and not of a paragon. I'll give him that. We also have a Lex Luthor that everyone sees as being the best guy ever and a Nobel Prize winner. That's going to need to be explained further to understand how his hatred for Superman hasn't led him to odds with the law.
Yeah, well, that might come on Supergirl. I mean, they killed him off on Supergirl, so now he's suddenly back.
And he's a good guy.
Yeah, so that might change a lot for sure. Yeah, the thing with Superman and his sons, that to me is strange. Because it was weird enough him having a son. It ties back to Brandon Routh Superman because he also was going to have a kid on that by the end of that one. So we know there's a new Lois and Clark, Clark and Lois, I don't know, TV show coming, Superman TV show. Does that mean he's going to have 2 kids on that show and we're going to have to deal with Superman as a dad? I don't know. It's a little bit strange for me. I don't know if I want to have super babies running around. I don't know if I want that for Superman show.
Yeah, I got nothing. I've not been watching Supergirl, so the whole Superman story has gone straight over my head. But yeah, dude, that was a little bit odd that he didn't know about them. But All right, finally to the things I did enjoy for the last two parts of the crossover. The Ezra Miller and Grant Gustin Flash crossover was a neat connection between the DCEU and the Arrowverse. Seeing the new multiverse forming in the end with the inclusion of Stargirl, Swamp Thing, Titans again, Doom Patrol, Superman Returns, Green Lantern was an interesting way to tie in more to the DC universe. I wonder if the Stargirl Earth 2 will be the same Earth 2 we had before with Harry and Jesse Quick, or if this Earth 2 is a completely different one. What are your thoughts? That's a good question. I don't know.
That is a good question. Did we get the same Earth 2 back, or is this a brand new one?
Yeah, because Stargirl's confusing because it's airing on both properties. It's a DC streaming show technically, but the CW is also going to air it. So that is very interesting. It could be.
Yeah. See, if it's the Earth 2 that we got back, then that means Stargirl will be a new, or it's someone we didn't meet before or meet yet on Earth 2. Or with the universe being reborn, they could write that she's just another superhero that kind of grew up and became a superhero on that Earth. We just didn't know about her before. It's a new universe, so anything can happen, really.
Well, we had a Stargirl on Legends for a minute.
Yeah, we did. For a minute.
Yeah, and then they, slowly killed all them off. But...
And for all we know, since all of a sudden the Wave Rider can now jump from universe to universe as well as time travel, maybe when they went to that whole sequence with the Justice Society, maybe that was all on Earth too.
That'll be an interesting thing to see if they keep that retcon or if with the destruction of all the Earths that goes away.
Yeah. Interesting.
That was kind of odd, but anyways. All right. And of course, we can't forget the Hall of Justice with the Arrowverse's newly formed Justice League. Surprisingly, Black Lightning had a seat despite him being fairly new and was only in a couple scenes in the Crisis.
Yeah, that's true. They're putting a lot of faith and trust in him.
Yeah.
Not really knowing him, but he did help them save the world, and that whole sequence with him when the 90s Flash was running on the treadmill, Black Lightning had a big part to play there, so.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Overall, was a little disappointed with this crossover despite the year of anticipation waiting for it. Hopefully we'll see something better next crossover. Fingers crossed that this merged universe will make small cameos and small crossovers a little more common among all the shows. From ArcPhase version 2.0.
Because he's back. That's the new ArcPhase.
Yes.
Yeah, good ideas. I would like to see lots of mini cameos and small crossovers. I think that makes it more fun. It keeps the shows more connected and the timelines a lot more in tune with each other.
Yeah, I think that would be a good way to do it. And then have just a big Justice League event as like the quote crossover without it being really a crossover anymore. That would be cool.
Yeah. And they can do it now with all being one Earth. It's a lot easier to write a story around now. So that's really cool. Yeah, ArcPhase, we're glad to have you back. Unfortunately, you didn't enjoy it. I know we talked a lot about it, work about it, so I feel you on a lot of things. And you heard me ranting a lot. Yeah. Well, maybe ArcPhase 2.0 is also a villain.
I guess Harley Quinn's turning over a new leaf this year, y'all. Sorry.
yeah. Harley Quinn, you're going to start wearing butterfly wings and stuff.
Oh, man.
But still. Hey, everyone's allowed. I know there's a lot of people out there that loved it, a lot of people that didn't. It's the same thing with the Rise of Skywalker movie. A lot of people loved it, a lot of people hated it. So we're kind of split.
I haven't seen it, so whoops.
All right. Well, we got one more email from Daryl Washington. I don't know if we've gotten feedback from him or not before.
No, I know I've seen him in other CW-verse groups, but he is new to ours and a new feedbacker for us on our show. So it's
awesome.
Nice to hear from him.
Good time to come on board to kick off the season. So he says, I think it's ridiculous Kara super sped into a crowded room and no one noticed. I'll give him that. Another griping point. How long was Kara at the DEO before she looked at the new sign? She has supervision, but she's not too observant. So true. I love Ray's Superman pose. I'm hoping that since Argo is back, they'll remember Allura exists and have Kara visit her. I thought they would have showed Felicity since the dialogue made it seem like she was in the bunker with them. Where did she go so fast? I really hate that Elcor is no more. That basically means all of Lena's work is undone as the Elcor CEO, and she's probably working under Lex when she should be running it all. Yeah, interesting for you Supergirl viewers. I'll be so curious to see what they do with all of that now. 2 Lexes, or 2 Luthers, I mean? Bebo lives. They use that it's a long story excuse too often.
They do. Mm-hmm. But then they summarized it anyway. So
yeah. I hope the Supergirl writers take a page from the Legends writers. The Anti-Monitor coming back just lessens Oliver's death scene, in my opinion. Oh, wait, sorry, that's 2 sentences. I hope the Supergirl writers take a page from the Legends writers. Wonder what he's referring to there. Just the way they ended the Legends episode with the Bebo thing and everything?
I don't know. Or maybe it just being more goofy. I'm not really sure.
Or more smart.
You'll have to let us know.
All right, so then he says, the Anti-Monitor coming back just lessens Oliver's death scene, in my opinion. He's agreeing with me in Arc Phase, not with you. I hate to burst the bubble, but it's not a new look for Jean. They just don't have the money for the full Martian effect for the entire scene, which is a real shame. Ah, that's right. Yeah. He was in the outfit, but not the Martian Manhunter head.
You see his head briefly when he takes off.
Yeah. I wonder why the Anti-Monitor grows larger and his force field goes away.
I felt like he was absorbing the energy. Like he had the force field, and that's what I thought was happening.
That's a good way to explain it. Thank you, Harley. I don't understand Supergirl's dramatic slow-motion fight scene. Thank you. I just finished going off about that. Just get in there and heat vision him like you've been doing. I don't understand Superman's surprise that he has multiple sons. This particular one wasn't a Paragon. If they do all drop by the DEO, how is that John's problem? He's not the director. I still don't buy the Kate from last year's crossover was season 1 Kate. They haven't made it clear enough. If they introduce Gleek... Oh, sorry, they haven't made it clear enough. I saw that online, someone complaining about this Kate not being the same Kate from last year's crossover. I'm a little confused on why people are wondering that.
I am too. I'm also not watching Batwoman, so
no, me neither.
Someone's going to have to clue us in because I have no idea what any of that means.
Yeah, and he's right. It's not John's problem. He's not the director of the DEO anymore, so why is everyone getting mad at him? Doesn't need it. All right, well, he ends off with, if they introduce Gleek but not the Wonder Twins, I'll be very disappointed.
That's right.
Yes, you can't have the Blue Monkey without the Wonder Twins. And then he ends with a quote, plans are nothing, planning is everything. Dwight D. Eisenhower. And that is from Daryl Washington.
Yes, yay. Thanks, Daryl. Thank you for writing in and joining our group. Glad to have you, even if I disagreed with you.
Yeah, Harley doesn't really watch it. She's just being nice now.
Yeah, he commented mostly on the Supergirl stuff, which is good because we didn't really talk that much about it because neither one of us are really watching it. So it was good to have that kind of running commentary.
Yeah, it's good. And hopefully he'll be with us for the rest of this new season because Legends is back starting next week.
Yay.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for your feedback. It is much appreciated you guys were here. I know it was kind of late last notice we asked for it, but Legends returns next week for regular shows, regular everything, and I hope you guys get back on board the feedback train with us. We want you guys to be part of this ride because all the other shows will be slowly kind of coming to an end and Legends will kind of be the only one out there continuing on. So we'd like you guys to be with us. Here's how you get the feedback in.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegends@gmail.com. That's spelled with 1 R. You can also reach us on Twitter @tomorrowslegends, also with 1 R. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/tomorrowslegends and become part of the community. Tomorrow's Legends.
Well, we're back.
We're back.
Season 5 starts next week, and we'll be back on our usual time slot at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. That's when the show is airing. And Harley has it here. Feedback deadline will stay the same Wednesday nights, guys, because, we're going to have to discuss it. I've got 2 more Arrow episodes I got to do, so we might have to, you and me will discuss when we're going to record the next 2
Oh, okay. We might
Legends shows.
You guys might get some extra days. It sounds like we might need to record on Fridays.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out. I will talk to Cammy over on Arrow Squad about that. But still, Legends is back, guys. We want you guys to be back with us, and I'm excited. I'm glad. It's felt so long. since we've had Legends.
It's been so long, I know. And even though we just got done with our season 1 rewatch and we talked about how much we enjoyed the series, I'm still really looking forward to the Goofy show coming back.
Yeah, well, the trailers make it look really fun this year. I'm looking forward to what we saw in our previews so far, what's coming. I mean, come on, Ray being Mr. Rogers, it looks awesome.
It does. It looks
like a lot of fun. That's it for us, guys. Remember, you can find us at Tomorrow's Legends at Twitter. I also, if you guys are Star Wars fans, I'm doing the Mandalorian podcast called The Mandalore, so check that out. Jess, anything else that you want to add?
No, I mean, you can find me personally on Twitter, not doing a whole lot, at Justin Atlanta. Definitely go check out my Twitter handle if you're looking for links to any of the Mr. Robot or Legion podcasts, because I retweeted all of those there. So if you wanted to check any of that out, you can find that all on Twitter on my personal page.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, definitely. That is it, Jess. We'll be back in a week.
We will.
Yay. All right, everybody. That's all we got for you after this massive long crossover. I know it's a long one, but hey, we had 2 episodes to talk about, so
we did.
See you in a week. This is The Flash, signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network.